Okay, well, kind of a weird subject for me to comment on just because I usually avoid subjects that really are kind of personal. You know, people have the right to make their personal choice, and it's really not a social policy kind of issue. But I guess there is sort of an underlying social issue that I'll hopefully get to in the second half of this. So first off, on just the idea of organ donation. Yeah, I've been on both sides. I mean, when I first got my driver's license, I said yes, okay, sure, makes sense. And then thinking about it, there was a time where I was kind of uncomfortable with it because the idea of autopsy even is just kind of, it's an unpleasant prospect. There's kind of a, I mean, I don't know whether it's just vanity or something, but it's just this idea of being turned into hamburger, you know, that's just kind of unpleasant. It's just there's a perception. There's just no art to it. There's no dignity in it, in a sense. And I guess that's sort of the key phrase, is there's indignities you can take or you can accept when they're imposed by nature or some absolute fact, but when they're imposed by a human convention, they're more tarnished. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, your organs are better off in somebody else than they are just rotting in the ground, or, you know, I guess I would choose cremation. So I mean, you know, getting incinerated or barbecued or whatever. So I mean, it would sort of, there's no intellectual reason to find any offense at extracting them. But there is that, it's just that aesthetic thing. There's just that, I've used this example before, but I mean, even you get these little stuffed animals or something, it's hard to just throw one in the trash because it represents something. And I guess in a way, our physical bodies represent something. They mean something to us that's a little bit more than just their reality. And so it's something you can trip over it in your head just because you can intellectually know that there's nothing there, but emotionally it's hard to accept that this is your end. I mean, being dead it's almost like being dead is bad enough. There's this extra indignity of being thrown on a table or slab or whatever and cut up and having your pieces extracted, you know, and it's, you know, I mean, you know, to think about having my eyeballs pulled out of my head and cut open and crap extracted, and it just, there's a, you know, it's a threat somehow to, you know, it's like like I said, I don't have a better word for it. There's an indignity to it. It's like we deserve better than that. And so I guess that's, you know, it's just, that's the part to get uncomfortable with, I guess, is just that it's on an emotional level. It's just hard to accept that that's what you become. It's just this thing. And even the thing, like I said, the thing still means something to you. It's your piece of art. It's your piece of stuff. And to have it just desecrated has got to offend. And but like I said, intellectually we all should be able to get past that. So I'll get to the part that's going to be a little more controversial. My objection is to the whole concept of organ transplant. And really it's just an objection to the whole concept of aggressive medical treatment. Certainly we've gotten to the point where organ transplant isn't as full of shit as it used to be. I mean, it actually does buy people a lot of years of life. So, you know, it does have value, so I'm not denying that. And I'm not denying that if somebody in my family needed something and, you know, I could make the difference in that way, sure. You know I would be more comfortable with the idea. or somehow I'd find an excuse for it, a rationale. And so I know I'm not being, it's not that it's not that I'm not being intellectually honest. It's not that I'm even suggesting applying a standard. I guess I'm just saying I wish people were more comfortable with mortality and just got past this idea that you have to aggressively fight. And I guess more specifically, I guess I would narrow it to what they do to kids, because I mean, St. Jude is, it does TV commercials. Everybody knows what it is. I mean, it's a children's hospital, and it's perceived as such a good cause, and I've always hated it. It's almost like the thing I had with Mother Teresa. I mean, I never liked her because she was finding excuses for suffering that I couldn't stand. And I really just hate the way they people project, and I mean, I understand why parents want their kids to live. I mean, I'm not ignorant of that desire and need, but I just think they go so far. I mean, it's this, the horrors they put them through, and they're learning something by doing it. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about the fact that they're finding some better therapies and all that stuff, but they're putting kids through an awful lot of suffering to do it, and that's the part there's a truth to the fact that life is all perception. I mean, we make it. We decide what means something, and we don't always have a control over that. We're awed and impressed by things, beauty and this and that and the rest of that crap, and that's all very hard for us to control, very hard for us to say, oh, today I'm going to appreciate, cockroaches. Gee, that's a little inconvenient. Yeah, I woke up before the alarm went off. Anyway, so, where was I? Yeah, so we put kids through all this stuff, not because they necessarily they don't need to feel this urgency about living. I mean, what they need is maybe a graceful end, and and there's this just refusal to give in, to let somebody die, and it's always going to be a hard choice. I mean, if there's a chance, if there's a 5% chance or a 90%, or who makes that decision? So, like I said, I'm not saying there's any policy I would suggest out of this. I'm just suggesting that this is part of the issue, is that, as a society, we do subsidize a lot of this stuff. We do pay for it. We certainly pay for it in our health insurance premiums. And, some of this stuff, like I said, especially with kids, but, even with adults, they're putting new livers in people who aren't very healthy, or doing something, and it's just, how much time are you really buying? Are you buying 6 months, a year and a half? And what's the quality of those years going to be anyway? And, like some of it's easy, the stuff they do with people's corneas or whatever, and the rest of it, I mean, that's, it's sort of an obvious good. But I don't, like I said, I don't know how you would draw these. There's no way to draw the lines. I guess I'm just suggesting I wish there was more of a balance between these two approaches, and that the focus wasn't all in one direction, which is more time, more years, more, whatever the cost, it doesn't matter. Because the cost does matter in a sense. I mean, you can't deny that. If you're spending $150,000 on one person, it means you can't spend $10,000 on 15 others, or whatever the equation is. And there's trade-offs to be made, and that's the part that just, the whole subject gets kind of tarnished in this atmosphere of, what's the real accomplishment here? I mean, would it be better to be more comfortable with the facts of life, our mortality, and making that a smoother and easier transition than it would be to get so obsessive about these extra days or weeks or months, or like I said, in some cases it's many good years. But I don't know, the cost to benefit analysis is almost impossible to make those judgments. I mean, on a case-by-case basis, it's hard to know what the prognosis is going to be and whether it's worth it or not worth it. And so, I mean, it brings up, like I said, the subject is it's not simple. You know, it should be simple. I mean, intellectually it seems like it should be, but it's not simple, because there's a lot of subtleties to the equation.